an update about my wife's stroke situation. Today, it has been 4 months in the hospital since my wife's stroke. And today I'm going to update you about what happened to me, what happened to my wife, how she progresses, and hopefully to give you some insights about stress, managing stress, and about how to encourage recovery when we want to grow new nerves. Before we start, I would like to apologize for not producing more updates recently. Today you're going to understand why I could not produce more updates. And I know that many of you were worried about my wife, so hopefully today is going to cheer you up. How is my wife doing? Well, I want to go back to give you a background about where she started. My wife started with a major stroke, which led to 98% paralysis. The only movement my wife could do was moving the thumb up and also have a slight movement of the ankle of the left leg. That's it. When she started, she was connected to 4 tubes. Tracheostomy tube, connected from here, the NG tube to feed her directly to the stomach, the catheter for urine, and for some time she had breathing support as well. For 5 weeks she has been in the ICU unit. During those 5 weeks she hardly improved, and for 2-3 weeks she had no facial movements at all. It took her about 3 weeks to make the first smile. Seeing no much of improvement for 5 weeks wasn't a good situation, so much so that a very close friend to us told me that she could not visit her during this time because it was painful for her to see my wife in this situation without any improvement. This wonderful, strong woman is now fully paralyzed for such a long time. It was depressing to see. From week 6, my wife was still connected to all those tubes, with only tiny improvement. During this time, I had zero control over her nutrition, even though I spoke again and again to the doctors and the dietitians. But after 5 weeks, something interesting happened. The medical staff finally agreed to provide my wife with fish oil that I bought with my money. So I selected the exact brands that I know work with my clients. It may be a coincidence, but 3 days after, she began to move her paralyzed leg. After another day, another improvement, and another improvement. Then we tried to integrate additional nutritional interventions. Also, the dietitian agreed to change the feed that connected to my wife. So I had a tiny control over the feed as well. And I noticed that whenever we strayed from good nutrition and the supplement, then my wife's recovery stopped. Of course, I tried to convince the doctors to provide her with their permission with more supplements that I choose, including NMN. I cannot expand on that during this time because my wife is still in the hospital, but I promise that in the future I'm going to update you about what happened with NMN and how my wife's body responded. In the 2.5 months since, a lot of things happened. First, my wife's condition had recovered about 50%. She moved from the stroke unit to neurological rehabilitation unit, which couldn't happen unless she improved. She is tube free. She has no tubes whatsoever. Her speech gradually returns, although she puts a lot of work exercising it every day. One of the privileges, in my experience, is seeing the person that I love the most struggling and overcome the issues and the problems that she has. And it's quite amazing to see her mental strength and her ability to stay positive and focus on the goal. She continues to exercise, and frankly, I don't think that I could handle it in the same way that she could. And two amazing things happened this week. When my wife had a stroke, she used to communicate to us using the thumb. So we used to go over the alphabet, and she used to thumb up when the correct letter was chosen. And this way, she told us that one of her dreams is eating kiwi. And today, the first time since the stroke, she managed to eat kiwi. Another amazing thing happened this week is that for the first time, my wife managed to go to the bathroom on her own. Of course, she needs support, but she no longer needs the nurses to replace the pads for her. So being able to go to the toilets, even though with the support, is a huge advance. During this time, as my wife began to improve very quickly, I always felt that it was underestimated. It was assumed by everybody that my wife improves because she's young. Well, let me tell you something that was painful to see, at least for me. In my wife's ward, there is another lady. She had a stroke 5 days before my wife's. She had similar stroke in the same location. And my wife, don't get it wrong, has a very severe stroke, which had a late treatment. Now, this lady was 10 years younger than my wife. She was only 20, and my wife is 30. This lady had all the reasons to improve faster and sooner than my wife. Yet today, 5 months after the stroke, she is in the same position my wife has been about 3 to 4 weeks after the stroke. She has the same paralysis. When I saw her, when I realized that she had a stroke before my wife and how young she is, I literally cried for several nights because I know and I knew that her body did not receive every tool that it could to improve. It's painful to see for me. It's very difficult for me to see a body that doesn't receive all the tools to enable a healthy life for the person. After 4 months, I think I have privilege. After 4 months of being every day with my wife and being in 8 different wards with stroke recovery and now neurological rehabilitation, I could see how my wife's body responds. In many ways, I have deep insight into the body's neurological recovery system. And I'm quite surprised, to be honest, very positively. My experience with my clients and my body is that usually it takes about several weeks for the body to respond to an intervention. Even if you want to lose weight, it takes a couple of weeks, probably at least a month, to let your body to fully adapt to whatever changes you have done. But with stroke, you actually see the results within 2 to 3 days. It's quite amazing to see that. And observing how my wife's body responded to different things the doctors did or the nutritional changes has been an excellent testing lab. If something works, it works quickly, and you should not underestimate how powerful the things that do work. And when we stopped the intervention, immediately the recovery rate stopped as well. So all this experience gave me an insight into the neurological regeneration process in our bodies and into stroke or any neurological recovery. The first thing is, I was pretty amazed, as I said, to see how quickly the body responds to these changes. It's quite unbelievable that the body can create neurological changes within days. This is the fastest change I've ever seen in my entire career. And this experience you cannot replicate in the studies. You have to see it in your own eyes to see how powerful nutrition and supplements such as fish oil, how powerful they can be. Today I want to give you a tiny piece on why I think we don't provide in medicine today, as a society, the body all the tools to recover from neurological damage, whatever it may be, including MS and recovery from stroke. So when the body needs to create new neurons, it needs help. And diet and supplements is one of the help you can provide the body, so from that point the body can use the tools to do whatever it wants. However, one of the things we need to understand is that for an adult body to grow new neurons is extremely difficult. Adults, their body is designed to maintain health, to not change, to freeze time as much as possible. However, when you deal with somebody who needs to grow new neurons, you don't want the body to stay the same. You want the change. And my experience with the nutrition that they provide the patients is that this nutrition is more suitable to adults who want to maintain the same level of health. But we need change, and we need to provide the body with the nutrients to facilitate this change. Now, when during our lifetime we have neurological change? When do we grow neurons? The simple answer is when we are babies. So one of the things that we need to look at is how to replicate the same metabolism of a baby and what kind of nutrients does nature provide to a baby. Another thing that we need to look at is which nutrients human milk has above other types of mammals' milk. So for example, we have more MCT, we have more omega-3, we have more glutamine, we have more whey protein. All these things are clues from nature on how to enable neurological growth, because that's the main difference between us to other mammals. they don't need to grow so much neurons and brains like us. So whatever nature provides in our milk, we need to research and try to see if it fits into neurological recovery. Another major issue is providing the brain with enough energy. You probably know that adults, you and I, when we rest, our brain consumes about 25% of all the energy in the body, this tiny brain. However, when you look at a young baby, the brain consumes about 60% of all energy in the body during rest. So this tells us that the brain needs more energy than usual to grow new neurons. So giving an adult a nutrition that provides this 25% energy is not enough for recovery or repair of neurons. We need to look on how we can replicate what happens to babies. How do babies grow new neurons? I'm not going to delve any further, but I think I have an insight into what we need to do differently to help those folks to recover and grow new neurons even in adulthood. Now let me tell you about myself, but first let me give a big thank you for Do Not Age for providing my wife with NMN. Whatever impact it had done or did not have, I'm going to share in future videos. Lastly for today, I would like to share my experience. Many of you also asking me, how do you deal with this stroke situation? How do you feel? So in the last 4 months, I've been with my wife every day, every single day. And it has been the most stressful period of my life. When I say stress, I also mean demands, not just emotional stress, but also demand to do things, to take care of things, to deal with problems, issues that are urgent every day, all the time. You know, we change wards every 2 weeks until the last ward. New doctors, new dietitians who did not recognize what was previously agreed with me, and also dealing with 1,000 people every day, including friends and family, all want to know what happens with my wife. At some point, I reached an exhaustion. In fact, I went to the dentist, and he told me that I was grinding my teeth during sleep. I was eating away my teeth out of stress. In addition, I had an upshoot of white hair. So my stress levels were out of control. This is the reason why I could not produce more updates and videos like this. This stress level was killing me, and I could not have the time or energy to produce more videos. I was fully aware of what happened in my body, and maybe it's going to give you another insight. So, stress generally is good for you. Your body produces cortisol and adrenaline, both actually activate longevity. However, this only happens to short-term stimulus. In the long term, what happens is when your individual cells are continuously exposed to these stress hormones, at some point they resist the hormone. The receptors are burnt out. And you have to remember that your body is made up of individual cells. And when you stress them too much, they begin to resist the stimulus, the hormone, the communication. You can look it up in the studies. It's called cortisol resistance. In this situation of chronic stress, you get cortisol resistance and also adrenaline resistance. In fact, I know today that adrenaline has directly to do with the white hair during chronic stress. So basically, these two hormones stop working because the cells don't listen to them anymore. And what happened at some point that you don't have any energy to allow your body to move. And this is exactly what I felt. I felt a cortisol resistance and adrenaline resistance. So even though probably my body was pumped with adrenaline and cortisol out of the stress, the cells could not respond, neither my body. And now you also get, instead of anti-aging effect, you get an aging effect because now these hormones, they become inflammatory, which accelerates aging. So hurting my health and hardly being able to come out of bed isn't going to help her. So I took a few days off and now I feel much better. And what happens during this time is that you reset the sensitivity to these hormones because you shut them down. Once you stop all the stimulus, all the stress, all the demands for new things to do, they go down and then the cells can listen to them again. But it takes a while. It took me about 4 days to stop worrying about the future all the time and responding very strongly to all sorts of tiny stresses. And now these stress hormones can become pro-longevity again. Therefore, I feel much better now. I have more energy and hopefully I can produce more videos to update you about my wife's situation and also more creative videos about research in longevity. 2 last things. First, I want to ask your advice. What do you say about this camera? Do you prefer this video quality over my previous videos if you've been following me so far? And second, I want to say a big thank you to all the patrons on my channel. And actually, your contribution helped me to manage the stress situation much better and also focus on my wife and researching what is the best treatments for my wife's situation. And so far, it seems working. So for me, you are part of her recovery and all of you. So thank you so much. So thank you so much for everyone. And please let me know about the camera if you like it. Until the next video, stay healthy, stay young, and keep your stress within the healthy range.